Hey, welcome to the Mandible Judy live stream every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, where we know rock. No, we don't really know rock. I don't
I
know where
do.
that came from.
Chris
I
probably
think
knows
we-
Wow, I
rock.
didn't know I was
I
on
got you. I got you
107.7
covered.
The Bone. What's happening?
Rocktober. I feel like we have to wait till October to say Rocktober. But
No, here in San Francisco, it's 107.7 The Bone, a full, a big bone block. That's
And we
what
got
they play.
K-Rock
Full-
down in LA,
a
man.
big
Yeah.
bone block of nonstop rock. That's their
Oh,
thing.
nice.
Wow.
Wow,
That
not
doesn't
even-
sound.
Not gonna even pick that lead up and go anywhere with it.
The
Well,
the internet zeitgeist is currently full of bone. No, we don't need to push any further that way.
Our guest tonight is Steve Horowitz, and AKA Fluffy Schwartz,
Sure.
who is an
Sure.
American composer.
There you
despite
go.
what it
My
says.
Finally
on
got it right. Finally got it right, Chris. Thank you.
an American composer, and I don't know whether do you wear like stars and stripes on your shirt when you perform, or like what does that mean, Steve?
Just
Yeah,
means
little
I was.
worried.
In fairness, he did ask for that.
It means that I still believe in the American dream, Chris. Unlike people like you
Yeah.
who've given up on our country. You know what I mean?
Ooh.
I mean, fair
It means
enough.
I'm still a patriot, okay? You know what I mean? I believe that America can get better.
Is there a nihilist equivalent of the American dream? I don't
'Cause
know.
that's
I don't really want to get there. I don't. No.
No. Was the
Let's leave that
the
one
American
alone.
fuck it?
Yeah.
Steve's got
That's.
big.
What if everybody just gave up and just sat in the surf with that drink in your hand right there? Just let the surf wash over you.
Tonight brought to you by, though not officially sponsored, Four Roses. Enjoy.
That's good stuff.
Nice.
So
Nice taste.
Steve, we met a quite a while ago. Actually, I don't even remember who introduced us. Do you remember who introduced us?
I think
How
we're
it
twins. Didn't we grow up in the same household?
Shit, I totally forgot.
Jeez, and I thought I did a lot of drugs in the 90s.
Yeah.
Well,
Damn.
so what? The twins?
Yeah, yeah, we're twins.
no, yeah.
Fluffy Schwartz and Damian Lacidamian.
My
Yeah, you
word.
guys
We
didn't
did
know
the hip.
that?
Yeah.
How you didn't tell them?
No, sorry.
keeps a lot of
I-
secrets
what
from
the
us, man.
Problem is, I forgot myself. I can't remember anything. So yeah, I don't know, Steve. We must have. I remember, like, when the first times I think you invited me to Harvest Works, where I met Michelle Darling. You introduced me to Michelle Darling.
Did I introduce you to Michelle? I thought you introduced me to Michelle.
Is that a... Wow.
Wait a minute. No. Here's what I remember.
Talk about my memory. Yeah, go ahead.
Here's what I remember is that I had just moved back from. I was living in Holland for about 4 years, and then we moved back to New York City, and I don't know how I got your name and number, but somehow someone said, "Oh, you got to talk to my friend Chris," and we talked on the phone, and we talked for a long time. We talked for we talked for a while, and it was great. And then I came down to your studio when you were down in Midtown, like in the 32nd Street or something like that.
Koreatown. Yeah, the
Right?
Koreatown. Yep.
So that's how we first met. I couldn't have introduced you to Michelle Darling. You introduced me, although I did have connections at Harvest Works because of Daphne.
Yeah, but I think you were doing something there, and Michelle happened to be the engineer that day.
Right.
Maybe we both met her on the same day, which is really odd. None of you guys know who Michelle Darling is. She's a good friend of both of ours, and she's now, I think she's the acting head of electronic music at Berkeley College of Music.
That's a hell of a title.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's awesome.
Yeah, she's awesome,
and-
super talented, super creative.
Yeah, she so deserves it. She's been working so hard for a long time, and she's really creative
And
but,
I remember going to see her perform and you perform down. There was this crazy club, it must have been on the Lower East Side or something like that, which was like it was a very small scene, but it was I'm not going to remember the name of the place, but
Yeah, they probably she and Terry were Aerostatic at the time, the band,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, and I was probably playing chiptune music.
Yep.
Yeah, that sounds right. It would have been it could have been a lot of places. I think I don't remember. Could have been.
it was
all
definitely a
kinds of
hole in the
places.
wall.
Yeah, Yeah, right. Well, which one? But yeah. So, but yeah, and at some point you came and you rented my extra room from me for a while and set up your studio there, and that's when we really got to
Yep.
hang out. You used to insist that we broke for lunch, like pretty much every day, which was awesome because I needed that so bad, Steve. I was
Oh.
such a workaholic. Not that you
It was
weren't.
great. That was when you were working with Bjork or something like that on
Yeah.
an interactive project.
Right.
What?
I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you've never spoken of that.
Chris, how the fuck do you leave that detail out of
Oh,
any
I have-
conversation?
kidding
This
me?
is great. I
Well,
can
in the bio.
now I can really dig up some secrets that he's trying
Yeah,
to.
right.
please
This is
do.
great.
I mean, seriously, like it's not like I haven't listened to Bjork half my life.
Yeah, well, Steve knows too much. Steve knows actually so much. So I'm sending someone over there right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've got some I've got some contacts for
The
you.
door's gonna get smashed in. Someone's just gonna dive tackle
Like,
you.
What's that called? Swatting
25,000 down.
Swatting you right now, dude.
Oh,
Swatting
Lord.
you
All I know.
fairly.
Yeah, it's gonna
I
get
mean,
bad.
It was a brief, very high point in my interactive music career when I worked with Bjork, and I got to meet her a couple of times, and it was amazing.
This was after Sugar Cubes.
It was after Sugar Cubes. It was her after her second record. I think it was after I think it was after Hyperphonic. Is that what it's called? The really cool one with the she looks all Japanese on the front. Yeah, it's because she was doing she acted in a Lars von Trier movie. I'm not going to go on about this, but
That's cool.
Yeah,
that was
but
around the time that we met.
that was exactly, and right at this, that was the same time that I rented your room because I got hired by Morgan
That's
to
right.
do all the music for I Bet You Will for the we had started online, and then the show got sold to MTV, and we did like 50 episodes for MTV, and that's when I rented your room, and that was insane because I would throw my band in there, right? You know, we do
I
gigs
remember.
at night and nobody would come see us play, and then I'd throw the band in there, and it would be like, okay, we're 10 blues tunes, 10, weird funk tunes, and sometimes I bring a horn section in. We were all in that one room.
It was unbelievable. Do you have
Bang it
pictures
out.
of that?
Huh?
That was such a tiny room. Do you have pictures of that?
No, that was
God
pre.
damn.
I don't have any pictures of us in there, but I have the recordings still. Actually,
Yeah, good. I remember
like
meeting
a
Chris
6-disc
Romero,
library of stuff.
Andy Barbera, right? Chris Romero.
Yeah, Andy, fantastic.
Michael Evans,
man.
who I had known previously in the Poppies. Is that what the band was with Roger? Greenwood?
Andy, Michael Evans, Brian Williams, all those guys, man,
That's
used to
right.
come down, and that was great.
Yeah. So you've already mentioned somebody that we should probably tell the audience about. Morgan Spurlock. So you want to talk a little bit? That's a good place to start, I think. You want to talk a little bit about your collaborations with Morgan, because you had a few, I guess.
So you want to go back to like before he outed himself in the Me Too movement?
Oh no! What?
God, you don't know about that? Wow.
Oh
Yeah.
Jesus! I'm so sorry.
More fun.
Yeah,
Okay.
several years ago. Well, that's the story. Yeah, he wrote a Facebook kind of testimonial that must have not seemed innocuous to him at the time, but was really not didn't go over very well.
Yeah,
Oh,
foot in-
sins of
Okay.
those we once.
These are all
held
things
on so
that your
high.
audience can Google
Yeah.
and
yeah.
find
yeah.
out for themselves.
Yeah. Well, your work with him was awesome, and
Yes.
and that was how I kind of met you, or at least that's how I became aware of your work. Was you getting your band in that little room, and
Mhm.
around whatever 5-6 o'clock at night, as we were like wrapping up our stuff
right.
in the other rooms, and it's like walking like, what is going on in here, and then you doing the I Bet You Will stuff with Morgan, and
Yep.
and then lo and behold, eventually that turned into you scoring Super Size Me.
Yep,
which
that
was,
led to Super Size Me. Yeah, and originally I had met Morgan years before because he was a friend of my cousin's.
Okay.
So what a lot of people don't know is that Morgan, when I met him at first, he was the barker on the Sony truck. So Sony used to have
Oh,
like
wow.
a big truck that they would take around to show off PlayStations and stuff like that, and they would park it at beach volleyball events and open up the flatbed, and they try to. And Morgan was the barker to get people to come in.
Wow.
To use the check out this.
I remember
the equipment.
before I met him, you talked about him and you said he's like some weird punk rock P.T. Barnum or something.
He's like a cross between P.T. Barnum and Opie Taylor.
Wow.
Yeah.
Excellent. But
Absolutely.
that was cool times. And then right around then you started working for Nickelodeon, I believe. Is that right?
No, well, yeah, 2000. That's actually 2001 is when I first started working with Nick. Yeah.
Okay.
2001. Yeah.
So you were there
Audio directing there.
Are you still there?
I am still audio directing with Nickelodeon. Yes.
Amazing.
Unbelievable. 20 years later.
That is, dude. Oh my God.
If you'd have told me that 20 years ago, I would have been like, I'd still be doing this now. I'd be like, what have you been smoking? What are you on? It's like, no, but it's, no complaints.
There's only so much Dora the Explorer I can handle.
You
I was
have
just
done.
talking to someone about this today. The original Dora, Kathleen, she invited me to her quinceañera.
No
Wow.
way.
Wow.
Amazing.
Did
I
you
didn't
go?
go.
Because that's really
Oh.
loud.
I didn't go, but it was very sweet that she invited me.
That is
That's-
pretty
We were doing a
cool.
lot of voiceover recording sessions at that time with her.
Right. That's amazing.
Your
and-
I
yeah,
think you
go
call it your discography or your career has so many different
Facets?
varieties. Yeah, facets. There we go.
Varieties.
Holy shit.
It's like that octopus teacher thing we were talking
That's
about.
exactly
Like
right.
So many tentacles. It's like,
Every
how does it work?
tentacle's doing something different, doesn't know what the other one's
So
doing,
many
and yet
little
they come
suckers.
together to a cohesive whole.
Now they don't really come together to a cohesive.
Do you think they do or don't? Some people say they do. That's usually I find that makes me happy. If someone says like I can recognize that it's you
Mm-hmm.
in games
Yeah,
or
totally.
in the other stuff I'm doing, that
Yeah.
makes me feel good. That makes me feel like I'm being
You've
me.
left an impact.
Well, I mean,
Oh,
made a
and
mark.
it's from everything that it sounds like is that what I've read, at least on your bio and so on, you've done kind of a lot of traveling and you've
All lies.
collected
That is
this-
all lies. That
that's
was
all
written by
lies.
me, by the way.
Nice. You've
Yeah.
collected kind of
Yeah.
a lot of little bits and pieces, talents, and so on from all over the world, and that has then informed very dramatically your particular
Yeah.
style.
The
And I
truth
think
is, I never leave my house. I don't know any of that shit. That's all. Those are lies.
You're a
Those are
homebody.
just flat
It's
out lies.
very
He can
Howard
pull
Hughes.
inspiration from everything behind him. You see all that stuff that he can look at?
Yeah.
God.
That's because I have advanced Alzheimer's, so I need to know what people put those
Oh,
up
yeah.
so that I can
Man,
actually.
I get that reference.
Yeah.
So what? I mean, like, but how the hell do you get from Morgan Spurlock to Nickelodeon though?
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good question, actually. I think you know what it is. That's a hard. I'll get serious for a minute.
Yeah.
Not that that's necessary to do that, but it's and Chris knows this too, that I started out I'm just I started out playing guitar. I moved over to bass when I was in high school. I found my instrument. I'm a bass player. That's great. But music is a lifelong study. It's like it's something that I just always feel like I'm getting better at. I'm learning new things. I'm discovering new things.
Mhm.
And so the music thing, music production, all that stuff, that came naturally. But when I ran into the game industry, there was all this other arcane technology, interesting ways of doing things with sound and with music in ways that have really seriously altered the way I think about music composition, the way I think about music, the way I think about putting things together. And I think that the answer really is that I've just tried to be myself, express my musical personality, but these things fascinate me. I really enjoy them. Because so I hope that answers the question a little bit, is that for me there's not a whole lot of difference between scoring for a film and scoring for a game.
Yeah.
On a fundamental music level, right?
So I
or
then,
writing my own, my own stuff on a musical level, but
yeah.
they are extremely different when you figure out how to put it together and what they're made of.
So I've got to follow up then because I think that all happens around the same time, just as an interesting coincidence. And I'm curious about what your point of view from this was, given your previous comment about technology and allowing you to do different things.
Mm-hmm.
Radiohead drops Kid A, 2000 as well, and they went through the exact same process of they went through their first couple albums, found that they were kind of bored of what they were doing with their instruments, found and learned a shit ton of digital, and then ran into blowing that scene, at least from a popular culture scene, very wide open. So was that kind of a similar experience? You went, oh shit, here's all this new technology, or where did that go from there?
Yeah, I mean, in a certain way, I mean, the tech side tech side comes along with music, right? From when I start doing music, in general, it's like I got good at recording, and I made my living for a while as a recording engineer because I didn't want to flip burgers. I'd rather be in the studio.
Right.
But my main goal was to learn how to make my stuff sound good. Like, I can remember doing early recording sessions for groups and being like, I feel like I should go back and apologize to them. I had no idea what I was doing, and they were paying me to do it,
Same.
But every project
It's
I worked on,
horrifying. It's horrifying.
after that many hours of recording, you learn how to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, the technology is fascinating, but musical and music is constant development too. So, yeah.
Yeah, see, that
I
reminds
hope
me
that
too
answers
of
part of the question.
it's very clear that in a lot of ways, like you, me, and Chris had that same upbringing where you started out in music. Like you said, you ended up being a bass player, and I started out with vocals and then became a drummer and then went back to vocals. But what was because then of course I went on to do live sound for like 10 years
Yeah.
for a bunch of different stuff. But
I've got some
my-
good live sound stories.
exactly, don't we all? If you've been on the road, the stories are endless. But my question is, what do you remember the specific? It might have been an incident, a day, whatever it was, where you kind of switched from being on stage to being backstage or behind the scenes.
I never stopped, really. I mean, it's first of all, okay. I hated being in clubs. I fucking hated being in bars. Okay? It really wasn't my scene. So I think that throughout my whole playing career, and it's either been touring, right? Or it's been showcases, right? I've never been, playing, earning my living only as, playing in clubs or playing, year round, 5 gigs a week, 4 gigs a week, and doing that. I did a little bit of that in high school. Actually, I did. I mean, when I was playing jazz, I went to Berkeley High, and when I was playing upright bass and, and I was playing jazz, I did a lot more gigging, but that really wasn't my personality. I was always in the studio. I always wanted to be in the studio. My dream when I was like, whatever, 15, 16 years old was like, I was just like, if I can make one album, if I can simply record one album that gets released that people could hear, I'll be like, I'll die happy. Like that was my goal. It wasn't, to tour constantly or to play all the time. So that was always a thing for me.
Has that plus one kind of continued to be a constant for you? Like, just the one, I just want one more thing, then I'll die happy. Or are you're just skating it all on? Is it all gravy from this point forward?
It's just obsessive compulsive disorder. It's like I can't stop. It's I just enjoy and love what I do so much that it's just something I love to do, need to do, want to do, can't stop doing.
That segues really nicely into my question about your influences, which is funny because I don't feel like we've talked about music before.
Oh yeah.
I've never really asked you what your main influences were. I can hear some of them clearly.
Okay, go. Tell me.
To me, like, I hear a lot of Zappa. in what you do. And it's not like obvious in any way, but there's like a restlessness that you have that he has as well. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
I think it's pretty obvious that I'm influenced by Zappa.
Okay.
If you're listening to my albums, yeah.
yeah, but I mean that like it depends on what album you're listening to, right?
True.
Your string quartets, not necessarily as much.
Not as much,
Zappa,
yeah.
More maybe New York school, but what who were the and also I'll combine this with my next question just so you can just go off on a tangent, which is you're a bass player / band leader, which is a fairly unusual model, right?
No, it's
They
not.
do exist. It's not that unusual, at least. I
Really?
mean, I think a lot of people.
There's a
don't
lot.
know. Are there? Okay, so I'm the three I was able to name were Mingus, Don Was, and Charlie Hayden. Who
Very
else you
good. And
got?
actually, I'm glad you mentioned Hayden, because Hayden has become one of my just absolute biggest inspirations
he's
as a
amazing.
bass player, actually. And he's his tone, he's so soulful. He's amazing.
Mhm.
Charlie, amazing bass player, just unbelievable. So he's really, really number one on the list for me
Cool.
these days. The list changes, but
Right. Well, how about when you were young? Who was it that kind of grabbed your ear first, would you say? Like really in a way that lasted?
well, Jocko.
Yeah, cool.
Jocko was, I mean, yeah, still is. I mean, I get Misty. Thinking about, I mean, Jocko was such an amazing influence on me as a bass player, but also thinking about his story, it's very sad too.
Yeah.
So
That is an unpleasant
Jocko,
story.
Stanley Clark, Larry Graham,
Yeah.
electric bass players,
Yeah.
on the acoustic side, of course, Charlie Hayden, Ray Brown, Niels Henning Ørsted Pedersen, Eddie Gomez, guys like that.
So a lot of jazz was what you were
Mostly
really...
on that side of things. In terms of rock players, there's a lot of them.
Chris Squire.
Lee, actually, that's what I
Well,
was
Chris
looking
Squire for yes. I mean, I can't say no to that, right? 2011.
at. Tony. Yeah.
Tony
What about
Levin. Yeah.
Stu Ham.
Yeah. Trying to think. Even I mean, when I was very young, it's like John Entwistle was also,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
with the flying fingers, like
Yep.
just standing there, just completely stiff with his fingers moving at like 1,000 miles an hour.
Boris the Spider.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm-
I mean, you
I'm-
can see behind me. This instrument behind me
Yeah.
is a 5-string phone.
Mhm.
I found this. This is a great story since we're talking about bass.
Bass.
So my kid, for a while, a few years back, like 8 years back, Finn used to like to go to Guitar Center. He was getting into guitar, and so I would
Yep.
always go into the room, and I always wanted to get one of the acoustic electric guitars like this one with the, plug in, but it's an acoustic instrument. And I would go into the room, and I was playing these instruments, and I'd play like $1,000 Jackson, and it's horrible, because these things are huge, right? The intonation wouldn't be right, or it just wouldn't feel right. And I was just checking out. So this bass, I started to play it, and I'm just like, this feels great, and the intonation was nice. It had been strung incorrectly, but I could just tell it was a nice instrument. So I'm like, I'm just gonna buy this thing. And so I asked the guy, I'm like, how much? He's like, $200 with a case. I'm like, wrap it up. And he's like, can't. Someone brought it in, and we have to hold it for 30 days because we, in case it's stolen. Right. So
Oh,
they hold on to the, instruments that come in where they don't know if they don't have,
Right.
a certain
Paperwork.
pedigree, or if they don't have documentation.
Uh-huh.
So I waited 30 days. I got the bass, and I took it over to my guy at the time who was setting up instruments for me. He's like, oh, what's this? And what's cool is it's 5-string, and I wanted to, my mind actually was blown going from 4 strings to 5 strings on bass. I didn't think it would be, but it's like the extra string really changed
This one
things.
goes to 11.
Exactly. And most people actually will get a 5-string bass and tune it down to the low B. I tuned it up to the C.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought it to him, and he was like, oh yeah, no, these are cheap instruments, made in China, blah blah blah. I'm like, yeah, check it out. He set it up. I brought it back in. I came to pick it up, and he's like, you know what? This is a really nice instrument. And actually, it's made in Korea. These Epiphones, and it's great. And I think this is the bass that kind of led me to just to bring this circuitously around, since we're talking about bass, which led me back to Charlie Hayden. Really, the sound that Hayden had, and wanting to get that very natural. Sort of, kind of
string
just
sound,
natural,
Wood.
big, soulful tone.
Yep.
I'm curious if we can take it up to sort of current modern day kind of music. The interesting mention of Jaco, Thundercat, obviously very, very heavily influenced. So I'm curious.
Square pusher.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious about your take on that influence and how it becomes even more and more so what seems like every year in the rap, and kind of especially when you're dealing with Flying Lotus and so on, who are bringing this trip hop scene into a more modern era.
Yeah, and all these, man, all these, there are so many, it went from math rock groups to like all this post psychedelic stuff that's happening now, and post prog, right? Don't get Chris and I started, because we will talk about prog rock, my friend.
It's not
and
just,
we will
not just
defend
the
it
two
to
of
the
you.
end.
All of us will. We had a full blown hour-long conversation about what the best Yes song was. Appropriate as it was.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious. I'm teaching now at San Francisco State University, and I will develop a course on Close to the Edge.
As
It
well
will
you
just
fucking
be a
should. That's
full
amazing.
15-week course analyzing Close to the Edge. That's it. It goes Schoenberg's 5 Pieces for Orchestra, The Rite of Spring, Close to the Edge. That's it. Let's just I'm dropping the mic.
That's a full course right there. You were talking about the new math rock that they've got out too. Like I came up on the heavier side of music. Listening to, started out with like Rush and Ozzy, but then it went into heavier and heavier stuff. But there was. Does anybody remember Voivod? Does that ring a bell?
Oh yeah, we talked about Voivod. Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of people nowadays that are talking about this new math rock, and I keep going, did you just start listening to music? Because this stuff, because there's Polyphia and Chon and a bunch of new bands out there that are, you're talking like 18, 17, 19-year-old kids that are like shredding their instruments.
Black MIDI.
Oh, it's
Black MIDI
amazing stuff.
You guys heard Black MIDI?
Stuff. I have, yeah.
There's Black MIDI, and there's also Animals as leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Black
those
MIDI is
guys
a genre. Black MIDI is a band, but it's also a genre before it was a band. Yeah. And Animals as leaders I've heard of, but I've never heard any music by them.
I think it's worth a listen, and they sort of break the mold for like a hardcore metal band, because the lead is black, and you're like, what's the first time I've seen a black lead, and every other white guy in the background, and he's just fucking phenomenal.
There's 2 other major from the 90s and early 2000s that had black leads that were really super heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it's been around for a while. It's just one of those kind of niche things that if you're not into the music, you're gonna miss it.
But Animals as leaders, absolutely worth spend a couple hours with a couple of good pair of headphones, and then maybe some aspirin after the fact. But they're tremendously talented.
Yeah, you know where it starts to lose me? Not all of this stuff, but some of it in math rock particularly. Like when it was kind of post rock, I was down with it. And in math rock, it started to get a little bit chops heavy. And I've never been a chops guy. Chops are stupid. Like anybody can learn. You play your instrument in your bedroom for every minute of the day for 20 years. You're going to be awesome at that, right? But that doesn't mean you have good ideas. It just means you can play. Your fingers can move, right?
Right. But if you take those people and you stick them together with other people and they make a great idea together, then it's chops along with the great idea. It's like it's like a jazz fusion rock thing that goes on, and I can't even.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just responding to like some of the stuff I've heard, not all of it for sure.
Yeah.
I tend to, and as I get older, I tend to like stuff that's more kind of mood oriented than
Mhm.
anything else, where you're creating a mood and an atmosphere, and you're not
Yeah.
like just showing off on your
Yeah.
instrument, and like that
Well,
just always,
that
'cause
kind of
even
gets
during
back.
prog bothered me. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Steve.
for me, that gets back to again to Charlie Hayden. I'll keep bringing up Charlie
Yeah.
Hayden because Hayden's not the fastest player. Hayden's not the most technical player,
Right.
but Hayden is by far, just one of the most musical bass
Right.
players.
Well, yeah, it's like the guitar player from Pink Floyd. He's not like a hugely technical player, but his mood, his playing, it's iconic. It's stuff that hits you right in the feels every time.
Gilmore, I guess
Yeah,
we're talking.
Gilmore. Yeah.
hmm At least up till a certain point.
Right, but I mean,
Yeah, I didn't think
after
that he
that,
would
it
still
doesn't really
be.
matter.
I
About
think
where
none
that
of us were
happened.
thinking that David Gilmour would still be touring Dark Side of the Moon 50 years later. I mean,
Yeah.
kind of like a horrible,
I mean, good
horrible
for him in
prison
a way,
sentence.
but yeah, it is. But yeah, probably it is. But he's like, yeah, I'm rich. I don't care.
Right.
He also discovered Kate Bush, so good for him on that one.
Yeah, I'll give
There
him
you
that
go.
one.
Yeah.
So you go, and this is kind of, I don't want to be, how to approach this. You're and obviously an incredibly talented musician who then gets into, and maybe this is a false assumption on my part. Full disclosure here, I'm not musical in any way. I can't write music. I can appreciate it, but that's about it. You go from being this tremendously talented guy and then working at Nickelodeon
Being
and
the
doing
total loser that I am now. That's what you're
no,
trying
that's
to
not
say.
what I mean. And
Yeah.
and writing what are effectively for a much simpler audience, an audience that isn't typically going to appreciate those level of things. So when you're talking about the 5 and 6 and 7-year-old kids who are watching,
Oh, yeah.
like what was the Bubble Time and whatnot, like the composing for a thing like that, is it still a challenge for you, or is it something you're like, well, this is just, I can do this shit in my sleep?
Honestly, I've been doing it for a long time now. So, I mean, here's the thing. Here's the thing what I love about my video game career as a composer. Although I did start out doing AAA titles in the beginning, in the 90s, but really starting from when I started with Nickelodeon, I'm really just making crazy, goofy stuff for kids. And I love the fact that most, if not all of 99 point some odd % of my video game work is there's no gunshots going off. There's no, and it's just, I'm just made goofy stuff that hopefully made kids happy,
Yeah.
And, so that's, I don't think about it probably the way that you're thinking about it. Like, oh, I got to write this thing today. Yeah, I mean, 20 years down the line of writing for Dora and things, you have certain conventions that you use and you can, but listen to Bernard Herrmann, right? I mean, he had to pound out scores really, really quickly too. But I don't think about it that way. I think it's just, it's the art of scoring the picture, right? So you've got to look at what's there. And it's always interesting and always something that you're not expecting that you need to do. So
No, I love it.
Yeah.
That's excellent. That is definitely not the answer I was expecting, and I'm very pleasantly surprised by that. So that's excellent.
yeah, I'm not, it's interesting. I'm really, and Chris can talk about this as well. It's like, I'm really super proud of my video game work. It's like there are a lot of people who are like, well, because I mean, okay, I have 26 albums out of my own stuff, and it's like Chris was saying, just chamber music and string quartets and all this other stuff. But the body of work that I have for games is like I said, I'm very, very proud of it. And it's a part of my musical identity, part of my musical expression. So, but you get a lot of people who have who are like, oh, I wanted to write the great American novel, but I ended up doing advertising or something like that. That's not me,
Right.
Yeah.
You're doing it
You're
because you
happy
love
with
it,
your
and that's
life, yeah.
ultimately the base of it, and that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and fuck anyone who wants to shit on game music. There's some of the most impactful composing I have heard.
Doom.
Holy.
Ah.
Well, I was gonna go.
I
I was
have-
gonna go with
Mark says one
ODST.
word. Says Doom.
ODST.
Doom,
Yeah,
the
have-
video
I-
game, they have the
some of the
fucking
moodiest-
best music.
Oh,
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
but
I have-
you go back to even like Silent Hill. Like I remember like playing the second Silent Hill game and being absolutely brought to tears by the music at the end of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have students who are in my class now who literally are like vibrating, like they cannot believe they are studying game music in college. They're like, this is like they're literally about to just like freak out. It's like the most incredible
magic
thing
smoke
that's ever
come out of the
happened to
ear.
them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And this gets back to what we were talking about before, and this is what I wanted to say, and I lost this chain of thought. Is that so? You're talking about evolution of things. You got to remember, I come up at a time, right? I graduate high school in 1982, right? Suddenly, you've got, I can hear anything, right? I can go down to the CD shop. Or albums, which I still had at the time, and I'm hearing stuff from all over the place, right? And it's really, in the 80s, that's when that dam, and into the 90s when that dam broke, when it's like it wasn't like, oh, I'd love to hear some music from Turkey or some things like you're hearing everything, right? Everything from rock
world music
to
became a
jazz,
thing. Yeah.
classical, all genres are being crossed, and it's like, and that's where I come from as a musician, right? It's like, and then you jump forward, right, into that period in New York, and that's when all the definitions, the musical definitions started crashing down, right? It's like the debate between uptown and downtown, it's like really ultimately, Fred Fritz writing string quartets, and even going as far back as Mingus is writing, third stream jazz. He's writing, these beautiful pieces, and so those definitions all broke down during my lifetime, and we came at the tail end of worrying about, it's like, are you highbrow or low? None of that stuff mattered anymore. It was just like,
debate. Yeah.
right? It's just that debate's over. It's just like, play the music. Same thing really happened with game music. It's like, because I mean, here's the way it goes. It's like, right, you got the concert musician. This is how in the United States, right, who shits on the film composer. It's like, because they're the highest of the art form, and then the film composer gets to shit on the TV composer, and then the TV composer gets to shit on the game composer.
Yeah.
But those days are really over now, right? It's like, in our program and that we're trying to develop, and that we have been developing, is everyone's together. If you're interested in concert music, great. If you're interested in writing for games, awesome. Everyone's talking to each other, because everything's informing itself now, and everything's transforming, right? If you start to, film, games, VR, these forms are all merging in really seriously interesting ways. And it's nice not to have the baggage anymore, right?
That's a really
I mean,
cool
that
thought.
debate is over, of like game music, being valid. It's like, that's
I know.
not
Or
an
video
interesting
games in
conversation
general being
anymore.
valid as art, right? Just
Yeah.
video games in general. That was a whole debate as well. A bit
Yeah, are
later,
they-
actually, but yeah.
And unfortunately,
Yeah.
still continues to happen, which is
Yeah.
you get into censorship, and you get in a whole bunch of other, the Karens of the world and the Daves of the world. Dave, shut up, Dave.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, there's not one person. I just don't have conversations where I have to have the argument with people that digital media hasn't become the expression of the day. I mean, we saw it in the 90s, and that was the conversation. Do you think what's going to come of it? And it's like, now you see what's come of it. It's transformed society, right? It's transformed everything that we do.
So I'm curious then to tag on with both world music and then also kind of the innovative component of there, because of course Peter Gabriel very, very heavily got into that, and with his Secret World series and all that, really pushed the envelope of what was available at the time, because that was what, early 90s, and he's pushing the video game world and interactive and whatnot. So with that in mind, I mean, was that at all a thing you were aware of at the time? Is that a thing that was interesting and you were like, oh, this guy is really sort of bleeding edge thing? Or is it just, we'll
I
see
love
where that
Peter
goes?
Gabriel. The Security album Totally
Yeah.
blew me away. I listened to that thing a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, Chris, but a
Yeah, no,
lot.
the one before it even more, which is now just known as Melt.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah, Melt. Yeah,
Space Melting, yeah.
yeah.
But they're both amazing records, yeah.
And of
Uh,
course, let's remember that Peter Gabriel comes from one of the great prog
Yep.
bands of all
Genesis.
time.
My exposure to Peter Gabriel too, the very first time was the Plays Live album, the double album.
Yep,
Mhm.
yep,
It
yep,
was the
yep.
first time I ever got to hear Peter Gabriel, and I was stunned,
Yeah.
absolutely stunned. I mean, coming from the background that I did with, starting out with AC/DC and Zeppelin into Ozzy and Rush and stuff like that, and then going heavier.
yeah, you,
Someone
you started
introduced
getting
me
more theatrical is what happened.
exactly, and then what happened? Like, yeah, because I'm over here with King Diamond, and then all of a sudden someone hands me Peter Gabriel, and they both paint their face, and I'm like, oh. No, but it was just
Yeah.
he's his stunning ability to put together phenomenal musicians and bring forth an idea that becomes a memory that you'll never let go of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
this'll Clayton, this'll tweak your mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so I go back, being a music geek, I take it way back further. So, when you talk about these influences, like I love Zappa, right? I love Messiaen and Hinnemouth, right? Okay. And we start to talk about Peter Gabriel. And then, you start to talk about Turkish classical music. You start to talk about Indian music. And what's the thread that goes through it is this thread of monophony, right? Single note lines, not harmonic structures, but melodic structures. And that I got from Zappa. But in doing sort of my research and sort of opening my ear, and learning about these other types of music, is like you realize that this starts from the Greek and Oriental Helvetica, of antiquity, and so that's been something that once I kind of latched onto that and sort of understood it, it's like it became a much larger part of my musical vocabulary as well. Not that I don't write harmony, but if you're looking for someone to like do a video game where it's or do if I got called up tomorrow and it was like, we need you to do the next Disney movie, I'd be like, I don't know if I'm your guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what about? I mean, this is what brings to mind for me, and tell me if I'm on the right track here for what you're talking about. So monophony, like basically anything with like a discernible melody, basically, is kind of what we now know in the popular vernacular as iconic, right? Things that you remember, memorable melodies, right? Which I guess you could say Disney obviously is a really obvious example of that, but really any pop music or anything like that. And then all the other stuff where it's more about where every line is harmonized and it's, and it's more like the interwoven nature of the piece, not a one line that you're following. That is more like music that came out of religious, connotations, like basically literally prayers, like especially Middle Eastern music, right?
Yeah.
Whereas literally a prayer, like the music was a prayer, right?
Yep.
And where you just meant to go basically get into a state instead of think a specific thing, right? I don't know if I'm on the right track here, but
Well, yeah, I mean, I mean, a lot of that is true. And a lot of it for me, when I lived in Holland for 4 years in the Netherlands. When I moved there, so suddenly, I'm hearing Turkish popular music and, Turkish classical music, which I hadn't heard a lot of before. And then Indonesian and Suriname and India, so, all that enters in as well, and, in Indian classical practice, it's about the raga, right? It's about
right.
It's about a mode, right?
Right.
Depends on
But
whether
again,
you're
very religious, very right.
yeah.
I'm
In
curious.
Greek music, all that's where all our modes come from.
Yeah.
You feeling Ionian today, or you feeling Phrygian? Which way you want to go. But I mean, that's just a heady way to kind of bring it. For me, there's an arc all the way from the beginning of music through to the kind of music I like to write. Maybe that's just like a snotty, justification for, why what I do is what I do. I don't know. I mean,
I think for me personally, I'm past the point of justification. Like if you wanna like a thing, like a thing. I don't need to justify it.
I mean, I'll modernize. I mean, take animals as leaders.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those guys are pounding out incredible polyrhythms at an intense rate of speed,
Mm-hmm.
but it's all single note lines.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that was going to be
Phenomenal.
my next question for you is talking about the single note. It then does free you up for some very, very different modes of engaging with your audience and engaging with your music, because then you do get to play with weird rhythms. You do get to play with the syncopation in a way that you can't otherwise. So is that a thing that you find yourself sort of drawn to and including in even the simpler things that you're getting into the kids' music and the kids' shows and so on?
Yeah, I think it finds its way in there naturally. I don't like. There have been a number of times that I've done scores for games, and I'll bring in musicians, and they're like, "Is this like a 6-bar pattern, and now I've got like a 12." And I don't even think about it while I'm writing a lot of this, because a lot of the game stuff I'll write in the box. I'm not notating fully, right? And then I'll notate it or transcribe it for musicians to play, and they're like, "This is weird, dude. This is like a 13 beat phrase." And I'm like, "Yeah, I hadn't even really thought about that, but yeah, you're absolutely right." So it does find its way in. It does find its way in. They usually,
Do your
they usually
fucking job.
I'm like, I wrote it out for you. Don't complain. But but
On that, go ahead, finish. Sorry.
no, go ahead, please.
I was actually just going to say that if Clayton is over there using the word syncopation, I
Yeah,
kind of have to
syncopation.
call bullshit on his I don't know how to write music or don't know anything about music. Syncopation's a big word, man.
Well, just because I've got a good vocabulary doesn't mean I can execute on it, all right?
But you know what it means and you know how it works. That means you know something about music. So don't be acting all
That's
innocent
the
over there.
point. That is
Yeah.
definitely a
Fair enough.
But and back to your thing about bringing in musicians. My older brother was a studio musician for a long, long time, and he would have experiences like that too, where he'd get in there, and they would hand him these sheets of music, and he would be like, "What is this?" And then they'd explain it, and he'd go,
Yeah.
"Oh, well, that probably would have worked better if you had just told me what I was getting into."
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh, Mark, can
Mark.
you...
There you go.
There we go. Thanks, buddy.
I knew it was Mark.
It's always Mark.
It's
Always
always
Mark. Now he can't talk because he's muted.
and we can talk about him.
Oh man.
So that
Continue.
does beg the question: Did you spend a lot of time as a session player that at least you had to sort of deal with these same problems? So you do have some sympathy for the guys who you hand a piece of sheet music to and go play that.
Is it still
You're good,
Yeah,
Mark.
No, you're good.
awesome?
When
I've plugged in my earbuds.
So when I was coming up, I did have a few friends who went down to LA, and there still was a studio session scene in LA. Great players, right? I mean, and there are so many great stories, films that you can see on that, from the Wrecking Crew film to Tommy Tedesco and that whole group, Emil Richards. Oh, God, this great Emil Richards interview. If you guys don't know, Emil Richards was like this amazing, fantastic, amazing percussionist, session player in the 50s and 60s. And one of his things is he got all these exotic instruments from everywhere as a percussionist. And he was pretty much everything you hear from that period, he was on call for, right?
Nice.
And he did the early Zappa sessions, and he talks about those. And, they're like, they were totally making fun of Frank, and they're like, oh, he's got long hair and the guy doesn't know what he's doing. And then at some point in the session, they realize there's a great video on him telling this story. It's way better than me. And he's just basically like, hey, guys, wait, hold on, take it seriously. This hippie knows what he's doing, and he's it's like, they suddenly get really serious because there was some piece that Zappa had written out, and they're like, oh, it's not playable. And Zappa's like, if I play it for you, will you try? And he played it for him, and they're like, oh my God, he knows. So, yeah, so I didn't, I was never a session player, but
Okay.
I played in a lot of different groups and a lot of different bands. I was reading music. I started reading music, really getting serious about reading in high school, right? Playing bass. When I switched over to bass is when I had to start reading, getting my chops together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want to move on, Steve, if we can, because it's getting a little bit late. I don't want to keep you forever. But I did want to talk about two more
Forever
things.
is a long time, Chris.
Forever
It
is a long
it is
time.
a long time. Not with me, it isn't, Steve.
I think you
the
mean
two-
that with Steve, it isn't.
I told you,
Well-
Chris, I'll do anything for you. You name it. It doesn't matter.
Amazing.
I won't leave until you dismiss me.
Carte
Wow.
blanche.
Oh my
So I
god.
wanted to talk about.
Can't believe this guy teaches at a college.
One of the. Did you hear that?
Shh, don't tell anybody.
I'm kidding.
Keep that a secret.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Chris,
so
remember you asked for this.
I did. I totally asked for it. The retaking of Pelham 123.
Yeah.
One of my favorite pieces you've ever done. I mean, I remember seeing it live in New York City. It was awesome. I was at the. We're gonna watch a video in a moment, if that's okay.
Sure.
With David Garland and David Shire and you, and and the filmmaker. What's the filmmaker's name? I'm sorry, I'm terrible.
Jane Brill, who did
Jane
yeah.
Yeah, and that really grabbed me. I mean, I knew we shared a lot of musical history, and we both liked stuff that
Yep.
we and in common. But when you told me about that project, I was like, what a cool idea. So what I would like to happen here is if you could give us like a 1-minute intro just to what the piece is, and then we'll play the video, then we'll talk to you about it, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah. So I actually found the score. So the original film, The Taking of Pelham 123, was scored by David Shire. I found the CD in a record shop somewhere, and I just fell in love with the score. I just really related to the music in a way that, like, I felt like I could have written it, like it just felt so familiar to me. Meanwhile, talk about Supersize Me. So Supersize Me is happening. I go out to LA, and I'm doing meetings with all these agents because, when you have a film that's going up for an Academy Award, everyone wants to talk to you, right?
Right.
So I go out to LA and I'm driving around, I'm doing all these meetings, and one of the agencies that I met with handled David Shire. So I asked them if they would pass an email to him, and I wrote him a total fanboy letter because I had been working on this piece where I was basically doing a sort of theme and variations on his music. And it was sort of like at that time, the Zorn Ennio Morricone album, was, I knew about that later, but so I wrote him this email like, Mr. Shire, I really love your music. I'm writing this piece. I'd love for you to just endorse it in some way when the album comes out, when the CD comes out, and let me know. And I got a phone call from him. And I thought he lived in LA, but he lived in New York, and he was up near Nyack, and I was in the city.
Wow.
And it was a great conversation because he was like, I always wanted to be associated with the avant-garde. and that was the beginning of I was like, I hate to break it to you, but but not a lot of there. No, but that was the start of my friendship with David. And then he came down and was what you're talking about. He came down and did the pre-concert talk, and sort of endorsed it there. And the fact that he really liked the music was incredibly important to me and very special. And actually, just to tie this to present day, about when I started teaching at San Francisco State and helping to develop the program in music for visual media, I brought David out, and he worked with our students and with the theater department, and he was out here for 3 or 4 days, and he performed, actually, playing piano on some of his score, The Conversation, and he actually did a master class out here that was on Pelham, on the original score, that was amazing. And just this will cap it off. So he's at the piano, basically, got a room full of people, and he's talking about, and he's like, so I came up with this, it's a serial score. It's actually a 12-tone built off 12-tone rows. You guys know about that. So it's sort of Schoenberg serial technique from mid-century. And he's like, the left hand is Schoenberg. He's like, the right hand is Schoenberg, and he's playing the melody, and he's like, and the left hand is Herbie Hancock. Boom. And I was like, now I understand why. That's like two of the greatest music I love, and he just jammed them both together. And it was at a time when you can do this and it was perfect for that picture and perfect for the score. So anyway, that's the background on how that happened. Because I just fell in love with it and just started
that explains so
reimagining
much
it
to me about that score. Just you saying that totally explains so much to me about the score.
Yeah.
The right hand is Schoenberg, the left hand is Herbie Hancock.
That's exactly it.
Wow. Damn. Okay, so Clayton, do you have the link still?
I do. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna bring it up here.
So when he brings this up, you guys, to watch the video, you have to click the link that says "Watch Stream," and then you'll be able to see.
You guys ready?
Hear it. Yeah.
For all you on YouTube, if this got DMCA'd and you can't hear it, sorry.
I don't think it will, because it's actually original music from Steve, unless they DMCI it for Steve.
Right. All right.
Steve's got his bots out there.
Steve, we really like your place, Steve. Let us stay.
Should I hit the button too?
Steve got shooters.
All right, you guys ready?
Yeah, go.
Here we
so
are.
Just click the watch stream link. In
Make every man, woman, and child in New York City close their eyes and count to 100.
Now some are saying this is a demonstrated vulnerability in the subway and that it's an invitation for terrorists.
How can they know anything? How can they know anything?
David Shire, back in 1974, wrote the score for the movie The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3. How would you characterize your music for?
I wanted to get something that, a musical metaphor for New York. And what struck me was that New York is this very organized place, except on the surface it looks like it's constantly on the brink of falling apart.
Steve Horowitz decided to create a piece based on David Shire's original score. This isn't just an appropriation, but a matter of sort of theme and variations.
The combinations of contemporary classical music and jazz have a long history in the history of music, and a lot of it sometimes can be very forced when you try and bring the forms together. And what struck my ear first and foremost with David's score is how absolutely effortlessly these different styles were combined. It opened up a doorway in my mind to what his music might become if I were able to sort of filter it through my musical ear.
Jane Brill was brought into this project to create some imagery.
I was so excited by the music, and I saw the film, and I felt very excited by the film. I felt like I grew up with those characters. I figured everything that would be in my film would just be things that I could find in the subway. I didn't contrive anything except for the friends that came with me so that I could take their portrait.
I didn't expect the post 9/11 message from it. One of the reasons I really wanted to work with Jane is because of her. She has such a wonderful eye and a very humanistic style of filmmaking, and I think that she was able to bring out those themes so much better than, in a way, the music I was writing could. And it started to combine and to really join together from there.
If I were hired to score this picture today, instead of in 1975 or whenever it was, I would hope that my score would come out sounding like what Steve has done. You kind of cross the bridge with my music into the 21st century. It's grittier, it's dirtier, just the way the subways are grittier and dirtier. The sense of fear, as Jane is so wonderfully done with her images, that now the movie's a metaphor for the fear that we're all held hostage to in the subways. And I think what you've done just captures that wonderfully.
Awesome. So good. Beautiful, beautiful work, Steve. It really bowled me over when I saw this live. What was this? 2000? What year was this? That was in New York.
Oh, 2000, 2003, 2000.
Yeah, the video is later, I think, but
Yeah,
2003 sounds right, somewhere around there.
right.
Yeah, yeah, it was excellent. Yeah, so I mean, I'm not sure where to start with this. I mean, there's so much going on here. This is really where I hear all those influences, right? Like when I talk about
Yeah.
hearing influences in your work, I don't hear just David Shire in that. I hear a lot more.
Yeah, a lot
you
of stuff comes together, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
It's interesting. It's about orchestration too. It's like
Mhm.
recently I've taken to be sort of fanatical with my students that, it's like, you know, look, you can teach the rules of music to anybody, and you can teach it's a major chord, it's a minor chord, it's a this, it's a that, right? Anybody can learn harmony. That's great. Cool. Study it. You should, right? But, the difference between living in Hawaii and living in Texas musically is like one instrument. It's a slide guitar versus like a flat key guitar. Orchestration is like the most powerful thing that you can do, musically, color, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's the tie back to engineering for me, mixing, right?
Mm.
That's what you're doing when you're mixing. That's why I love mixing albums, right? It's just color, pure color orchestration through music.
Are you just going on what you just said? Are you we've never talked about Brian Wilson before. Are you a Brian Wilson fan at all?
Not the, I mean, I do like Brian Wilson, especially the crazier side of Brian Wilson.
I mean, Pet Sounds, right, is all about orchestration. It's all about what instrument he uses. It's like color,
Absolutely.
like literally tonal variation. Yeah.
Yeah. I like the Beach Boys too, so.
Yeah, well, it's all good stuff. Yeah, but I know what you mean. Smiley smile. That's the shit.
Well, so there is
The
there
real-
is there is a question there.
Yeah.
Then is a nice tack on is as someone who has some very obviously a very well informed ear and a fairly complex palate. Do you enjoy listening to things that are more challenging to hear and to understand and to go through and pick apart, or are you just like, I like it all, and I just want to try and find something that really just fits whatever the mood is, particularly today?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like anybody else. I like what I like, right? You know, I don't judge based on complexity or simplicity. You know, I just don't think about music on those terms that way. It's like for me, you know, I can listen to Ligeti's Chamber Concerto, which is a piece that totally changed my musical thinking, right? When I heard it. It's an amazing piece of music, right? Totally blew my mind, right? To me, you know, and maybe it's weird to some people, they can't make this division, but you know, for me, if I'm listening to bluegrass or, you know, Bonnie Raitt or
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know, it's my mind is able to travel different places and not get stuck get stuck, I guess, you know. You know, and I don't think I really don't think I'm uncommon that way. I think it's a generational thing. It's like I think we came up listening to a lot of different things and not getting pejorative, you know, not putting them in boxes as much.
But I guess just to further define kind of what I mean when I say that, I don't necessarily mean that you get kind of classist or snooty about the music you listen to. More of a by analogy.
Oh, believe me, I am snooty. don't 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 let me off the hook with that. I
enough.
am.
All right, you stay in your ivory tower then. But no, what I mean to say is,
I'm opinionated.
well, I think we all you can't hit the level of expertise that you have and not have opinions. I think my Uncle Joe. I don't have an Uncle Joe, but everyone's Uncle Joe has opinions, and they of course go into the internet and shout them at their loudest volume. My guess is when it comes to music, you probably know what the fuck you're talking about from your opinions. So, but what I mean when I say that is, as one becomes more educated, one understands and enjoys a particular thing at different levels and with different complexities. So for me personally, I used to hate mixed martial arts until I did a lot of personal mixed martial arts. I saw it as just a blood sport for violence for the sake of violence. And then once I understood the complexities of it and whatnot, I now go, oh, okay, I can understand and enjoy that if I want to go through and enjoy that. So for the same, from that analogy, do you have any more appreciation for those things? Do you get any more? Does it tickle the back of your brain more in terms of things that the quote unquote average listener wouldn't get it?
I actually think I'm kind of the opposite. It's like, you know, I don't and believe me, I've spent a lot of time listening to people justify their music, you know, based on technique or based on philosophy. I just don't believe that this whole line of crap sort of from the ivory tower and from new music, that the more if you only understood it,
Right.
if you only understood this piece of music that you just don't want to listen to even for 4 minutes, you would love it. You would love it. I just don't buy it. You know what I mean? It's like, I believe that with almost any style of music, that the music that I've gotten into, that the stuff I like, the more there is a level that if I understand it more, my appreciation for it grows. Right?
Like you get
But I don't believe that if there's stuff I just totally, you know, I'm not liking, the more I understand it isn't going to help me like it anymore. It might help me appreciate it in a certain way, but I'm not going to, you know.
What's the weirdest thing you ever found yourself liking, Steve? Like where you're like, I never thought I would like this, but holy shit, I like this.
Oh man, that's a great question.
I gotta follow up after that's done. I want to find the thing you're most ashamed of loving.
Well, it's
They might-
kind
And
of.
I've got to get going soon myself, so I have 2 questions too. But go ahead, finish.
Okay.
All right. Thing that I was surprised that I liked so much.
It's Halsey.
No.
So for me, like I'm just to maybe
Yeah.
jar your memory. It
Yeah.
was like I remember this is a long time ago, but I remember hearing a song. Do you guys remember the band Tattoo?
Of course.
They were a Russian
Yeah,
female duo, and they had this song, "All the Things She Said," all the things she said. I don't like something about that song just like kicked in my head. It was like, this is a good song. There's something really awesome about this song. I don't even know what it was. Just like not the production. So like that just happened, right? It was just like something about the melody, something about the chordal, I don't know, harmonies. Who knows what it
Yeah.
was?
It was
Well, I
hormones for
remember-
me.
The hot, girls making out in the video. Yeah, maybe that was part of it. But 2 girls making out in a video. You can't deny, that there's something there. But no, that was, I mean, totally. Like even I heard on the radio, right? And I didn't see the video. I was like,
Yeah.
this is a cool track. I'm not sure what I like about it. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
It got in your brain. It for sure did.
Well, I
So,
mean,
like
one of the
something like
first.
guilty pleasure. Yeah.
I don't know if this falls in guilty pleasure category, but there's
Okay.
a band that I've heard. Like, it's one of those things. Like, I remember I was 10 years old and I went to the record store and I just saw it and I bought it. It was Head East. You know this band, Head East? Flat as a
No.
pancake. And I love that album. Nobody else, like everyone else, was like, "What is this?" You guys can go check that out. There have been bands like that along the way. I'm kind of blanking on anything I'm embarrassed
Okay.
about or that I can't believe I love. Like, I mean, one of the things is like, actually, I really actually like cartoon themes and some of the modern cartoon themes. I actually really, they're the classics, like Spider-Man,
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
Spider-Can, the classic. Everyone loves those, Hanna-Barbera and all those. But like, I like,
Got
the
another
Wiggles, like, Finn got into the Wiggles or like the Teletubbies. It's like I've got some of that stuff stuck in my head,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's hilarious. I'm sorry.
Like,
Yeah.
every once in a while, I'm just sitting there thinking, clean up, clean up.
All right, here's
Yeah.
one I know. Oh my God, here's one I know you'll remember, the Johnny Quest theme.
Oh yeah.
Oh hell yeah.
absolutely.
Shit,
Great.
so good,
Great thing.
so good, and totally what like everybody. Well, I mean, I guess Venture Brothers is quite obviously borrowed
Taken from it.
Mhm.
Johnny Quest, but that's you know who that is, right? Who did the score to that? It's
Was it-
Fetus, Jim Thirlwell.
Really?
Scraping Fetus off the wheel. That was his '80s moniker, and then
Wow,
he became
shit.
Jim Thirlwell and started writing string quartets, and then he did all the Venture Brothers music. And there's this great episode where he just basically does like the son discovers his dad's record collection, and it's all prog. Have you seen this?
No.
It's so good. It's hilarious. It's like, wait a minute, son. I don't know if you're quite ready to enter the court of the Crimson King yet.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and Thirlwell got to do like his riff on Prague, and it's amazing. It's just like it's just so good.
It was an awesome episode.
Yeah,
I feel like I've let you guys down. Like I
Not
can't
at
come
all,
up with something. I really can't come up with something that's embarrassing or that can't believe I
Teletubbies
like.
ranks up there. I got to be honest.
Yeah, that one's pretty high. You probably nailed it with that one, man.
Yeah.
It was like
That's a
like the
great
first
song.
time.
Think about it. Tinky Winky,
Yeah.
Dipsy.
It's
Oh,
definitely
I mean,
earwig
come on.
candy. That's like up there with the first time that I ever started listening to techno, and I hated techno, and my roommate played it over and over, and I told him, if I ever start liking this, I'm gonna punch you.
And then he
So
found
he ended up with a
himself humming
bruise,
Sand broom.
And So the 2 questions I had, one
Yeah.
was, did you, as far as like coming back to Clayton's question about the music and how you listen to it, as a engineer, and I know
Yeah.
that Chris has done this too, have you gotten to the point with music that you still enjoy it just fine? Whatever you enjoy, but you cannot help yourself picking out, oh, that's a crate amp. They're using this effect. You pick it apart, not on purpose. It just happens.
Rarely. I mean, I have a few pet peeves with engineering. One is like the overuse of oral exciters in the in the late 80s and the 90s. It's like you just have to stop that right now. No, not so much. I mean, as long as anything that sticks out like a sore thumb, I notice, and I'm just like, what's going on?
Right.
No, I'm not to the level of like, oh,
Well,
he's
it's
using
not
a
like
PV amplifier.
right. Well, it's not a matter of like judging it. It's just a matter of that your brain picks up, you recognize that tone.
So the conscious awareness of like you can't unrecognize.
Yeah, that just comes with the territory. That's sort of
Right.
like you can't separate your
You
brain
can't let
from
that. Yeah, some things you can never unsee.
Yeah.
I feel like you're more likely to annoy other people with these.
Yes. Yes.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So my second question before I go was, you're a bass player, and you've played a lot of different instruments. Have you messed with a harp guitar yet?
No, I have not.
But you know what it is.
I think I know what it is.
It's a 6-string, regular 6-string acoustic, but then they have another neck over the top of it that has the 4 lower register harp strings on it.
Yeah, I've seen those, but I haven't played around with one, but I've seen them.
Look up Michael Hedges. He's dead now, but look him up just so you can see and hear what it sounds like. And I think that as a bass player, you're going to want to try one day just because they're amazing. With that note, gentlemen, I have to be off.
Be well, man.
Mike, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Always. You guys have a great day.
All
Night.
right.
You too.
You too, Mike.
See you, man.
I want to swing back to theme songs. Because my wife and I have kind of a running thing when it comes to the songs. There was a magic era, we'll call it an era, of especially cartoon theme songs that seems to be gone now. And my question to you is, has it left? Are we not hearing it just because we're not watching it? Or has it gone for a good reason and we should just be grateful for what we got? And the specific era that I'm thinking of, and you may then cringe as a result of this, all of the Rescue Rangers, the DuckTales, the Tailspins, all the Darkwing Ducks, that whole era, they were just great. At least I feel they were great lyrics. They were great catchy tunes. They were actual full-blown songs and not, whatever, a melody on 30 seconds.
Yeah, I thought you were going with the Jetsons, the Flintstones.
No, because those came earlier and they were phenomenal. But after the Rescue Rangers and so on, it dropped. You don't get them anymore.
Have to, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I'm not. So I was up with it until my kid hit a certain age, and then I'm not listening. I'm not listening to a lot of anything that's not on Nickelodeon. With Nickelodeon stuff, I'm not as well versed on. So with those themes, so I don't know. I feel like maybe I'm not qualified to discount an entire generation of songs.
Fair. Let's juxtapose the two of those then. Was it better in the vintage era, right, where you're dealing with the Jetsons and you're dealing with all those?
I hate to use terms like better or worse. I just basically would say that again, I just don't want to quantify it. I don't want to be that guy. It's like, dude, those were really heady, great days for writing. For those shows, and not just the themes.
John Williams was doing TV show themes, right? Back then.
John Williams was doing TV. A lot of people don't know actually, and he started out actually with his own jazz group. He was the drummer in the Raymond Scott Quartet.
Oh, no way!
Johnny Williams.
The drum. Oh my God.
No, Johnny Williams. John Williams' dad.
Oh, okay, amazing.
His father was the drummer in the Raymond Scott band. So you're talking about Carl Stallings, who's truly one of the great composers of the 20th century.
Warner Brothers cartoon. Yeah.
You're talking about Hoyt Curtin, who just writes. I mean, it's just amazing the careers, the stuff that these guys pumped out. So
And they were doing it with nothing before then. They had nothing to go on.
Right.
They were just like Carl Stalling was just like, what are the popular songs of the day? I have this, and actually he was inspired by Raymond Scott a lot, right? They were like hand in hand.
Well, what he did was he licensed a lot of Raymond Scott's tunes,
Right.
For use in the Warner Brother cartoons.
Right.
Namely,
the most important one being dun 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 dun.
Powerhouse. Yeah.
Everybody knows that track. It's Raymond Scott is the original. Carl Stalling made it famous with Bugs Bunny, basically.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So I mean, I think there's good stuff in every generation. I mean, certainly even in the 2000s into now, the Wonder Pets themes. I mean, there's some great TV show themes. I don't think it's different. Not bad.
Mm-hmm. But you can see threads, right? I mean, like, The Simpsons is clearly inspired by the Jetsons. I mean, very clearly, right? So they're, Danny Elfman is that guy. If he's not a musicologist, he should be an ethnomusicologist. Yeah, he basically is studied in all that stuff, especially pop.
And I mean, what's his name? The not Elfman wrote the theme, but what's his name? Oh God, I'm just Alf Clausen.
Alf Clausen.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, Alf. He's just the body of work that he did with The Simpsons is so good.
And let's bring up an old friend of ours that was a former guest on our show, John Dylan Keith, with Bob's Burgers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The new generation.
Yeah, exactly.
New generation.
So it's interesting then to look at that, because I feel like there's a very different, and this is obvious. It may seem obvious, but I think there's a very different quality to the tunes and the kind of the tricks you can play with adults who now are. It's cool to have adult cartoons, as opposed to the stuff that you can get away with in a kids show. Speaking specifically to Bob's Burgers and any of the other things that are coming out, everything down even to including South Park, right? So, is there? I don't know. I mean, is that a new thing? Just not being very well versed in it. Is that a whole fresh playing field that now people are able to get into and explore? As a composer,
in terms of just writing TV cartoon themes?
Well, yeah, but I mean, in terms of writing a more adult material or getting to get away with kind of apart from Animaniacs and all of their very dirty jokes they like to weave into their stuff. Getting to write from some more adult themes in a cartoon kind of palette.
It's interesting. You made me think of Shirley Walker. You guys know about Shirley Walker?
Mm-mm.
Shirley Walker did the Batman and Beyond series, right? So she actually started out, she did like Falcon Crest. She used to do TV. And of course, very male dominated, right? Just like this conversation, right? Very male dominated.
Sorry about that.
And so she actually is the first female composer to score a Hollywood feature. What year do you think that was?
Oh God, I couldn't even. It's going to be depressingly late, isn't it?
94.
Fuck.
Right? She had done a bunch of stuff before, but always adjunct or not, so that's the first time. And it was for something, it was like Memoirs of an Invisible Man, not the greatest movie ever made. But, so she did all she actually really got into, Batman, post Elfman Batman theme. And she just took that to a completely different level. Her scoring chops are amazing. So Batman and Beyond and a lot of the Super Friends cartoons and actually there's a whole generation of composers, female composers who she helped to get into the industry. ASCAP has an award for her. You just made me think about Shirley Walker, which is great because, I mean, she's unbelievably talented, incredible composer, and who really dedicated. She is known for those scores, not for the TV stuff that came before, but really known for those cartoon scores, and they're really great.
Huh. Awesome. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a question.
Yeah, Mark, go ahead.
What video games were you in?
What video games
Did you
did I
did you
star
do?
in?
Yeah.
I was in all of them. Let's see. You know what? Somebody told me this. You can go on Moby Games and actually have a page on Moby Games. You can go look. Let's see. I started in the early 90s. This is going to be like a history quiz at like 7:30 at night to see if I can remember this stuff after the full day. Let's see. The first game one of the first ones I scored that you would know is Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, rocket science games. That was based on the graphic novel by Frank Schultz. Mark Schultz. Mark Schultz? Schultz. You know what I found out? I used to go over to Rocket Science Games to do meetings over there, and just recently found out that Elon Musk was a programmer on those games.
No kidding.
Yeah. Just found that out really recently.
Wow.
And it was like, you got to be kidding. No, so he was there. I never met him. I don't know him. But so starts out with Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, and kind of goes from there. After that, anything
Sega CD.
Nickelodeon.
Love that.
Yeah, you can look it up. Anything Nickelodeon digital, and there's other projects in between. I worked on the Princess Bride game. That's another one that sticks in my mind.
I just dropped your Moby Games link into the Twitch chat.
There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you. And
That
I think is just a small percentage.
Corsalor in the Twitch chat says Suzanne Ciani wrote the score to The Incredible Shrinking Woman in 1980. So there's that.
I don't know if that was considered to be a Hollywood feature.
I mean, Incredible Shrinking Woman. That was, what's her name? One Ringy Dingy. What's her name?
Really?
Hell. Yeah. What's her name? The Incredible Shrinking
Lily
Woman.
Tomlin?
No, yeah, Lily Tomlin. Yes.
Really?
Yeah. And
Wow.
Suzanne, I didn't know Suzanne Ciana wrote the score to it, but apparently, this is what Corset Lore is saying, and I'm going to look
information.
it up. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Learn something
because
every
if
day.
you look on the ASCAP website and the research that we've done, Shirley Walker was the first to be credited.
Score.
So while they're looking that up, of the projects you've done, what has been the one that still holds the sort of warmest secret little place in your heart of, man, that was the thing that I loved the most and still cherish to this day?
That would be my first album. The first album that I did, the Code album. Yeah, absolutely.
That is excellent. Anything that I've ever written as a younger man, I fucking hate. So for you to come into that position, that's phenomenal.
Well, I mean, you said has a special place that I will always, yes. There's
So
that one.
yes, but in my context, special is a masochistic place where I go to punish myself.
Yeah.
That's the special place there. That's not.
I tend to let those around me punish me. Give myself a break.
That's hilarious.
There's been a lot
I
of
get plenty
guys,
of punishment from others. I don't need to punish myself.
Exactly. I've got hundreds of people waiting to abuse me.
They're in line. They just
Fair enough.
line the block.
So I guess that is an interesting segue into, and I want to be respectful of your time. I don't know how much time you get left.
I want to eat dinner soon, so let's say another. How many more questions you got?
That's the bottomless pit. Here.
Well, we do need to talk about the Game Audio Institute. Do you want to start? Let's do that first.
Yeah. That's much more interesting than what I was going to ask.
Well, I mean, that's just part and parcel of the teaching that I've been doing, and the program that we're developing at SF State. So people can go to GameAudioInstitute.com. That's just a place where we've developed some training materials for composers and for sound designers who are interested in working in games, and it gives them a chance to put their own music and their own sound inside the Unity game engine, and with nice instructions on how to do that. And yeah, we run classes and we do so that. You should keep the nose on. Here, I'll show you.
This is good. The nose is good.
I forgot my camera was on, and I found it it was just in my desk drawer. My dad gave it to me. So I was like,
Steve,
So-
what is the website?
Snorlax.
Oh, nice. Snorlax.
It's just GameAudioInstitute.com.
All right, there we go.
I will.
My favorite Pokemon. This is my hero right here. This
He's
is
your
who I
he's your
idolize.
spirit animal.
I
Absolutely.
understand that.
I will.
Snorlax.
I will freely admit that I get a lot more walking in as a result of Pokemon Go. 100%. That is 5 miles per day. I have my loop that I take over the other gyms, and that's what it is.
Would you say, Chris? I mean, that's the Pokemon Go is like the first AR hit.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Right? That's the breakthrough. That's the killer app, the breakthrough app, right?
Yeah.
For sure was. And then also add in all of the holy shit, let's get our team of lawyers to please write as many disclaimers as we possibly can in the beginning. Don't ever go into any place that's not safe. Kids, in case you didn't already aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's up there with the college course. And I don't know if this is true of all colleges, but the one that I went to, one of your first years, you had to take. God, it was something stupid like college life, something to that effect. And the basic gist of the course was, wrap it up, okay? Don't drink everything but just beer. So like, have water. Here are the food groups. Eat a reasonable amount of all of them. And I kid you not, even went into like just personal hygiene. The fact that we have to do this for college students as a required course was challenging. Oh, and the other one was don't take just random drugs. Whole chapter on not accepting.
Yeah.
This was
great.
2004.
Ayahuasca only.
Right.
Yeah.
Only from the medicine man, Chris. Only from the medicine man.
Go to the Southwest. Find
Right.
the Yaqui way of knowledge. And
I went to I didn't go to music school till I was 24. I went to Cal Arts to study, and I was so embarrassed that my teachers could completely and utterly party me under the table. It was just I would go out with Stephen Lucky Moscow, who's passed away now, and a couple of the other faculty, and they would it'd be unbelievable. We'd go to a Chinese restaurant, they'd like eat a ton, drink a ton, then the other drugs would come out, and just crazy. I would be so like, they would just be getting started, and I'd be like
wobbling.
I'd be like in a coma. Absolutely. They're like, you should take it. They're like, yeah, they used to give me money for cabs home. It's just, I was so embarrassed. But that was a hard partying generation.
Yeah.
It's not California.
No kidding. Is the generation now less hard partying, or is it different partying? I feel like now you've got shit like bath salts out there. People are doing, drugs that'll make you eat people's faces.
Talking about the students that I'm seeing these days are sadly incredibly stressed out.
Mark, are you incredibly stressed out?
No, not with professors like you on the staff.
Are you gonna tell stories much like Steve just told about? I don't think I ever got high in front of you.
Well,
although
look,
I don't know if this counts. But...
For legal reasons, the next bit the story I'm about to tell didn't actually happen. But one time, like I went to my friend's cousin's house. I can't believe I did this. My friend's cousin.
I love stories that start with that. I can't believe I did this.
Huge pot smoker. And he was like, everybody was getting high. I don't know why we were there. I guess it was just to catch up with like him. And he's just like, do you want to get high? And I was like, no. And then later on, I was like, I mean, fuck it, because I'd never gotten high before, and I haven't ever for this story. I've never done that actually. I don't know. But I smoked.
Bob.
I smoked some, and I got really high. And the thing about my friend's cousin is that him and his roommates own like a total of like 9 dogs, and there was this, and his dog was like standing like in the doorway between like the house and his outside backyard deck, and for some reason it was really fucking funny to me. So I see this dog standing halfway into a door and into a doorway, and I just start crying with how funny that was. And I think that was the most high I've ever been. It was
hypothetically.
Strong.
Yeah, I mean, if it happened, yeah.
If it even happened, the first time I didn't smoke weed, it was really strong.
Would have
been. Everyone's got that story though. I do feel like everyone has their first embarrassing, oh my, I did a thing, and everyone around you is already aware that it's going to happen. Yeah. And hopefully you're around like people who aren't dicks about it.
See, if this had been the conversation earlier, I've got so many embarrassing moments. It's just that I just like a lot of music. I'm not embarrassed by music. I'm embarrassed. I got so many other things I'm embarrassed by, you know.
Yeah, right. Good.
My friends.
Too bad we're running out of time, or I would tell you about them. No.
Like, why are you crying? Because it's so funny. Look at the dog.
Don't you see that dog?
Don't you see the dog? Look at him. He's almost in the house.
Yeah. That's weed for you. Meanwhile,
Steve,
you find
thanks
out
so
you've
much
been
for
talking to
joining
your
us.
reflection the entire time.
Steve, thanks so much for joining us. We're really appreciative of this. It's been great.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. It's just great to hang out with you guys. It's good to see you, Chris. It's anytime. I'm here.
Yeah, we would love to come out to SF again soon. We will try to make that happen, and I will let you know.
Yeah.
And all right, man. Thanks so much.
All right. So what do I do? Do I just stay here and you guys
go
go away?
I mean, if you're not done, we can talk more.
It's
I just wanted to say goodbye in case you wanted to leave because you said we're running out of time. But
well, yeah. There's one more thing I'll tell you guys, and then I'm gonna go. I promise.
Right.
I don't even know how to leave anyway, so it's like it doesn't
it's gonna
matter.
be like
I'd just be like, you've got like, okay, bye, Steve, and I'd just be like,
well, I'll kick you. I'll block you.
I was going to say, we're going to turn this thing into a Space Ghost Coast to Coast episode, and you're just going to stay there for the remainder of the thing.
So Chris, you'll appreciate this. So look, and this gets back to some of your questions. So
okay, thanks.
I've been working in games for a really long time, and it's really changed a lot of the ways I think about music. Mm-hmm. And I've been writing music for a long time, and I really wanted to challenge myself not to just keep writing the same pieces of music in the same style over and over and over again. And the pandemic was horrible, but in that way, it's given me a lot of time to write. So I started a new series of pieces. I got about 4 of them done now, and they're all about combining my music and chamber music and new music with games or visual media in some way. So the first piece in this series is based on this video game Burger Time. Do you guys know it?
Mm-hmm.
You don't know Burger Time, Chris?
I mean, Steve, the thing about me is I don't play video games.
God,
I mean,
so,
I rarely play video games.
That's surprising. I thought you would know it. Burger Time is the one with that little Chef Peter guy, and he has to run and he has to make. He's being chased by hot dogs and eggs. Classic. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's like what's it? What was the one where you slide the beers down the bar? Tapper. Is it sort of like that? Okay.
So Burger Time, you guys can look it up, Okay. But Burger Time, you're basically this little chef dude, and it's like a Donkey Kong grid.
Okay.
And he's running up and down these ladders, and he's got to there's lettuce and some pickles, and he's got to form the burgers, like 4 or 5 burgers off of this weird maze, while he's being chased by hot dogs and eggs and pickles and all this stuff.
Someone's fever dream
that are trying to get him. So I wrote a piece which is mostly just instructions and little bits, and it's made for a chamber ensemble of like 6 players, so like violin and clarinet, and there's no a good friend of mine in college, Randy Hostetler, who passed away tragically many years ago, had this series of pieces that were video string quartets where the score for the piece was just the video. There was a written page, 1 page of instructions, and the way you would play the pieces, people can look these up. Randolph Hostetler was by players would look at the screen and they would that's the score. The video was the score. So I started to construct this piece in exactly the same way. So the players, so they're literally following each player, and there are rules that they have to do. You know, like the burger has a specific sound, and the pickle has a sound, and the chef and ostinatos going on. And so I put this really freaking crazy piece together. That's based on Burger Time. So that was the first one. Now the second piece is this piece called Side Scroller. Some of you may know this videographer I've worked with before called, his name is Zig Gron. He's living in Italy now. And essentially what we did, I had this idea that, you know, on all these side scrolling games, like everything from Angry Birds to, you know, Metroid to Mega Man to, you know, Ransom City, you know, River City Ransom, took really small video clips of those talking about rhythmic structure, right? And just so you'd see this repetitive action over and over again, right? So counted out the beats and just finished up a piece for percussion and bass clarinet, right? It's like a 26-minute piece where you're watching these little clips of video games go by. I did this other piece, which is a double string quartet, so 2 string quartets that get played and then broken into a million pieces and reassembled in a match 3 game in Unity. The name of the piece is Match 3.
Wait, so
and so I'm really trying to,
or
what?
Yeah,
so the idea was sort of that you could hear it as a piece of concert music, you could hear it as a recorded piece of music, and you could also experience it as a game just while you're playing the game. And the last one that another one I've been working on is this piece where you're in a maze and you're going through the score is playing and you're actually learning about different things as you go along, and so you have to, it's a maze runner that you have to get out of. So I'm really trying to think differently and trying, instead of being like, oh, my game music is over here, my film, you know, this is over here. It's like I'm really trying to bring a lot of the concepts from both sides together, because there's a lot of more in common than there is apart. So I thought I'd tell you guys about that, because that's the latest series of stuff I've been working on. Nobody can hear them yet. They haven't been put out. I have no idea if they're good or bad. I have no idea if they're going to be successful. They could be total train wrecks and people will just think I'm insane.
But they're experiments, right? So they're not meant to be like successful in any conventional way, right? They're meant to be expand your understanding of music, personally, right? And like
I'm always hoping they'll be successful as pieces, that they'll be satisfying. People will like to listen to them other than me. I mean, I write them for me. Yes, Chris, I write them for me. If someone else happens to like it, that's great.
Yeah.
But you know,
I'm
just, I have to say it's making me a little uncomfortable, because I'm trying to, you know, push myself a little bit to do things I haven't done before.
Yeah, that's
in
excellent.
ways I haven't done them.
That's really cool.
It's
why I got into podcasting, is I never tried it, you know, and I just thought, well, sound design. I've done sound design to picture in video games, in films, and TV. I've never done sound design in an audio drama where there is only sound, right? All you have is sound. So you have to literally tell the story, right?
But, you know, This Spartan Life also, you know.
Yeah, I mean, sound design, but it was visual, right? So this is the first time I've ever done anything besides like record releases and things like that.
Yeah.
That was, you know, sound design oriented, and I'm also composing music, but for a story that is entirely sound. There's no picture. So you have to do the whole thing with sound.
And you know what's interesting is the more it's like, and this gets back to like the more things change, the more they stay the same. Everyone's like, oh, radio must be old. But now, you know, I'm doing all this development for Google Home, or Alexa, and those are audio-only devices. You
I know.
So
Yeah, I know.
just through
We're in
sound.
a golden age, a second golden age of radio. It's really weird.
It's
Nobody
true.
knows it except for the people in audio drama and in podcasting.
And we're all trying to figure out how the fuck to get paid for it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's overblown with like competition already, but it's really hard to find the income source still.
Yeah.
And that's because it's internet, and the internet is just locked down money wise.
It's vast.
Yeah.
Well, the internet's old now, right? It's like we got to get to the next internet.
That's right.
What's the
What about
next
the
internet?
extranet?
The extra.
What?
Bring back the sneaker net. I legitimately do want that. I love the idea of having these small, secret pieces of data that you can shuffle from place to place.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's
So
my
I
kids.
thought
No, go ahead, please.
Oh, go ahead. No, I was just gonna say that's why I wanted to just share that. That's the last thing I'll share with you guys because
That's a great story, and
yeah.
I really want to hear these things, Steve. So please hook a brother up.
I know. I have really horrible MIDI renditions of them.
Excellent. That's what I want to hear.
That are really, really bad mock-ups of me making, double checking and listening to things. But yeah, we can do that on a separate. Like we'll do a one-on-one podcast as they call it, and then I'll share my screen. I'll play some of that. I'll play some.
Podcasting to me. Yeah.
I'd play some of it for you to get your. I'd get your thoughts and opinion on it.
I would just like to hear it and just enjoy it. I'm sure. So.
All right, guys, get off. Everyone, kick everybody off. It's just
All
Chris
right,
and I
out.
now.
Yeah, right.
6 hours later, Chris is like, "Why, God? Why did I do that? I never should have said I did that."
Oh my God.
We find him on the
I've lost all
floor
respect
drooling.
I've lost all respect for Steve.
Not likely. Not bloody likely. I think we're close enough to our ending time anyway. We can just can the stream at this point and can it, man. So,
I certainly shall. I got to tell you, I mean, just for me personally, from a very selfish standpoint, this has been fascinating. I mean, I was not nearly aware. You've thrown out a dozen, artists that I've since dropped down on the good old Googler there, and it will expand my mind. And I say that with no pretension whatsoever, because that is awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. That's cool because I've really had an awful time. It's been pretty bad for me.
Good. That's what we strive for.
Well, we make it as
it was
painful as
really
possible.
good until the guy with the mandibles like he left, and then I don't know what's happening.
Yeah. Mandible Mikey. Yeah.
Mandible Mike. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna roll title here.
Anytime.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. Again, Steve Horowitz. Thank you so much, sir, and we'll see you around.
Check the Twitch stream for links, and we'll see you guys next week. All right. Later.
Thanks, guys.
See you, Twitch.